So you wouldn't say that the church is trying to Christianize the space by making sure that such laws don't pass.
We have not even talked about Christianity. When we are talking about this, it is not. We are not saying let the nation be called Christian.
Okay.
And it is not just the church, by the way.
Yeah.
The Muslims are just as opposed to this.
Yeah.
In fact, more perhaps.
Yeah.
Than we are.
Okay.
Yes. So it is not a church thing.
Okay. Hi and welcome back to this channel. My name is Susan Silentoi. As you know, the aim of this channel is to offer information about how government works and why some systems are set up the way they are. This is with the intention to help us understand our role in improving the governance in our country. And through this, we can create a politically empowered generation. All right, so today we have a guest and we're going to be discussing with this guest matters of church and politics and regulation and government and all that comes with that. And with me to discuss this is former Bishop David Oginde. He is the immediate former Bishop of CITAM. So they call him Bishop Emeritus. He's also the current chair of the Evangelicals Alliance of Kenya, which is known as EAK. And he's also the lead consultant at the Catalyst. So welcome, Mr. Oginde.
Thank you.
How would you like us to refer to you, Bishop?
Whichever.
Okay, so we're going to call you Bishop throughout this session. But welcome. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today.
Thank you.
And we're going to be discussing a number of things about church. But briefly, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, some maybe passions that you have, and maybe one thing that we all don't know about you.
Wow, I don't know what you don't know. No, you have already actually said everything.
Okay.
But I'm very passionate about leadership.
Okay.
Some people who may know, I have been in the leadership space for a while. And for quite some time, I've been very concerned about how leadership is done, especially in our continent.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me to actually go and study leadership.
Oh, nice.
With an aim of trying to make some contribution to better leadership in our country and in our continent. So that is something that I'm definitely passionate about. Okay. And it's what I am pursuing even now after my term as bishop in CITAM came to an end.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
nice.
Yes.
Your term came to an end this year, 2021 or 2020?
2020, December I left.
I see. How did that feel?
It felt, I think it felt good.
Okay.
Because one of the things we teach in leadership mm-hmm. is that a leader must know their time. Mm-hmm. If you stay too long, you end up in that space where people are praying you out and wishing you left.
Dead.
Or dead, yeah. And that's not a good space to be in. So it is good to live when things are at their best and when people still love you.
Yeah.
And I think that's about the time I left.
Yeah. Or even when the regulations require you to.
Yes.
The laws require you
Of course, the laws did require me to, so I didn't volunteer to leave.
I see.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you've talked about leadership of the church as well, like briefly, as you mentioned what you've done. And I think one of the questions that a lot of people usually have about the church is just... it seems like it's a free-for-all sometimes. And there are quite a number of churches that take advantage of people in different ways. And we've seen in other parts of the continent, like in Rwanda, that people have actually, the governments have gone to the extent of regulating this space, making sure that whoever is a church leader probably holds a degree in theology. They're made to report some of their finances. Do you think that's a good move? And would that work in Kenya?
It's both a good and not so good a move. Mm-hmm. Good in the sense that human beings left on their own, mm-hmm. we become rogues. Even good people really become rogue, I would call it so. So some level of regulation is always good to keep us on the straight and narrow, so that we can live in a harmonious society. If there was no government, I can tell you, Susan, this country would be in chaos.
Yeah.
Totally in chaos, where you do what you like and I do what I like. And what I like may not be what you like, and may be getting into your space. So regulation is actually a good thing. It's never a bad thing. Regulation becomes bad when it infringes on your freedoms and what you need to do. So if all of us in Kenya drive on the left, you have seen people who don't want to follow that regulation. And you see what happens when that happens. So that regulation that we should all keep left, we should all keep to our lanes, is good for order. You know, when that is not there, we get into gridlocks. We get into space where a traffic jam can be 4 kilometers just because one or two people did not follow what needs to be done. So regulation is not bad. And in this country, there is regulation for church because all churches have to be registered. For you to be able to operate, you have to be registered. And with that registration comes certain obligations that you have to fulfill. Now, our kind of registration and regulation for church is very lax. You know, it leaves you with a lot of freedom to do what you need to do. And that is where the abuse now comes in, where some people have abused that freedom and have gone overboard to take advantage of those who entrust themselves to them. And so you find that now the countries like Rwanda and others have come in to try and bring some order into that space. Now, that is always good when you have good government. The challenge is when you have put in place that kinds of regulations, then a new pharaoh comes in who knows not the church or who may not even want to charge. Then those regulations are used negatively to now stifle what the church would do. And that's what the church in this country has been resisting. That yes, currently we are under a fairly good government, I would say, in terms of allowing freedoms of worship and what people can do. But it may not always be like that. So we may get into a place where there are people who are totally anti-church and they will use then those regulations to really drive you out of business. So we say, yes, there's some chaos in this industry, like it is in any other industry, by the way. It is not just the church. People who are taking advantage of others. Just recently, there was a big company in this country that people invested billions. And now they have run away, as it were, with that money. So it is not just church. People are generally greedy. That's why I was saying that human beings left on their own, we are naturally rogue because of our sinful nature.
I see. So then, okay, given that, yes, we have some freedoms, there's definitely some regulation in place, but we have quite a number of freedoms and some people are abusing it. Like in your view, because, you know, you've held a couple of positions in church and you worked with a number of churches as well. What do you think can be done, you know, to just kind of mitigate people taking advantage of other people? What do you think is a policy recommendation or a rule that can be put in place?
We are actually in the process of trying to create self-regulation. Self-regulation is good because then you are not subject to external forces that would come upon you. So if you are able to establish self-regulation guidelines that then are approved by the government, they have to be approved by the government, that this is how we intend to regulate ourselves. And we put in place those kinds of systems that then if somebody does something that is outside of what is acceptable, they can be called to account from within. That is always the best way. And we are actually working on that process where we can create a code of conduct, and I would say that we have gone very far with that. We have already created a draft that has been acceptable among a majority of church leaders. And if that should go through and is eventually taken on board by the government, that would be the best way for regulation.
That's very interesting. So who is we?
We as church.
Okay. Because I know there's church like EAK, and then there's NCK.
No, this is bringing together all because you see, as a nation, church is one body.
Okay.
We have different expressions of denominations, of churches, of umbrella bodies, and so on. But as far as the government is concerned, there is only one church.
I see.
Who are called Christians. So when they come to clamp down on church, for example, it will be the whole church. It will be all of us. So we have come together from across denominations to try and come up with a regulatory framework that all of us are agreed on. And as you would appreciate, this therefore does not have to do with doctrine.
I see.
What you preach, what you teach, but it has more to do with practice. How you practice the faith within the public arena, what you can and cannot do, levels of accountability, because you're receiving public resources that people entrust you. How do you use those resources? And how do you get those resources? Because that is an area that has been greatly abused by some pastors, unfortunately, where they use what we would call gimmicks to get resources from individuals. So those are the areas that we will be looking at. It will have nothing to do with the doctrinal teaching, because that different denominations have different practices, and they are free to do that.
Okay. That's interesting. So it is a collective of all the churches, and then you come up with your own code of conduct and have yourselves regulate yourselves.
Yes.
I think that's a decent proposal for sure.
Yes.
Maybe just for clarification. So there's EAK, and then there's NCK.
Yes.
And then there's another one.
KCCB.
Yeah.
The Catholics.
So EAK stands for the Evangelicals Alliance of Kenya, which consists of who?
These are in the narrow sense of the word, the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya comprises of evangelical churches. Mainly, a majority of them are Pentecostal charismatic churches, a majority of them. But it is not limited to the Pentecostal charismatic churches. So there are other, like the African Inland Church, some of the Baptist churches, and so on, are members of the EAK. So in the narrow sense of it, when you use the evangelical in the broader sense, a majority of the churches in Kenya are evangelicals. Even the Anglicans, the Methodists, the Presbyterians. But those what we call mainline churches, a majority of them are under the NCCK. Yes.
So EAK is mainly Pentecostal charismatics. NCCK is mainly
mainline.
So like Anglican,
the Presbyterian, the Methodist.
I see. Methodist. Okay, and then you said the C.
Which one?
The last one
KCCB.
is KCCB. So it's fully Catholic.
Yes.
Okay. So guys, if you're watching this, let us know which church you go to. If you go to church, do you go to church actually? And if you do, let us know which church you go to. If you don't, you can also let us know you don't, and maybe why you don't. Yeah. Or if you're from another religion as well, I guess you can also tell us that.
And by the way, the regulations that we are creating, we are hoping that they will also go beyond just the church. They will also go to other religions. Yes.
I mean, I think that makes sense, so that each religious institution manages themselves. I think that would be good. So just to avoid, if a a new pharaoh comes in and
Yes.
they don't like the specific religion or whatever,
Yes.
it's easier for people to just regulate themselves from within.
Right.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I think I want us to go into something that may seem a little bit controversial.
What is this? Even what you have talked about is controversial.
Oh, the regulation.
Yes.
Yeah,
People would not want to be regulated.
Yeah, I think so. But this one, I think we can all agree, is a bit controversial.
Yes, yeah.
So we know that the church takes a specific stance on a couple of things. So, for example, the church took a stand against abortion when it was being proposed in the new constitution, both in 2005,
right,
2010. And I'm sure if it comes up again today, the church will still oppose it. The church is also, I think, against the decriminalization of the LGBTQ or the legalization of LGBTQI marriages. So my question, and this is genuinely even a question that I also have as an individual, should the church dictate such laws? And the reason why I'm asking this is, don't you think that could be like Christianizing that space? If, for example, like LGBTQI marriages, for example, if it is between two consenting adults, why should the church say no to it? If they've decided to live that way, and they probably are not even from the church, why should the church be opposed to that from a country perspective? I understand if it is within the church context, because that is our space. But from a country perspective, help me understand why the church should take such a stance. And the reason why I ask this is because a lot of times I have seen there's a lot of hate towards people from this community, especially from people within the church. And Christ commanded us to love one another. And sometimes it doesn't seem like there's that kind of love. So I think that's another issue. But from a policy issue, from a lawmaking issue, why should the church take such a stance?
The church plays the role of being a moral conscience of the nation, of society. And within the context of every society, there are certain norms, there are certain practices, there are those things that are considered to be morally right. And so the church plays that role of ensuring that society does not degenerate into lawlessness, into immorality, and so on. So you'll find that the things that the church then speaks publicly about are those things that we consider to be issues that concern the nation, the society. So we are not preaching the gospel. We are not inviting people to get saved or be Christians, but we are saying that this is against the moral order of society. Just about the time that the Constitution was being reviewed before 2010, several surveys were done of the public in Kenya on the matter of LGBTQ, on the matter of abortion, which were two issues that the church was talking about. All of them, over 80% of Kenyans said this should not be allowed. So it tells you that as a society, we are not there. Now, we have a situation where there is a movement, a global movement, to make that which is wrong to be right. And it is being pushed very, very strongly. A lot of funding that is put into it. And this is what we are standing against. If two people, we are not against homosexuals. If you are a homosexual, please, by all means, do your thing in private. But why should you push it against people? Just the other day, a group of companies, big companies, came out to say that to push Kenya to allow this space for this. There have been even sanctions against some nations that if you don't do this, then why should the relationship between two people, just like you've said, which is in their private, be a national global issue? Why? Why should it determine who we do business with? and who we get funding from as a nation, it tells you that there's something that is sinister about this whole movement. So it is not just a matter of two people who are gay. If these people were doing their thing in private, who would know about it? Who would even bother with it?
Yeah.
How would I know that you are gay?
Okay.
When you're doing your thing in private, how would I know? Why should you come out to say I am? Why? I don't tell you about my sexual life in public.
Because we assume.
Why do you assume? And why should I come to tell you about my sexual life?
Okay.
So it tells you that it is more than meets the eye.
Okay.
It is a whole system from where we sit as church. This is part of the anti-God movement that is working very hard to deconstruct spirituality. It's working very hard to deconstruct family, so that family as we know it is going to be totally destroyed. So you find that it is not just a movement about homosexuals. It is a movement that is also behind abortion. They are all linked. It's a movement about children's rights. It's a movement that is really, if left on its own, the family as we know it is destroyed. And when the family is destroyed, society is destroyed. So we cannot therefore just sit back and say, these are two consenting adults. If that was the case, you would not hear any voice of the church. Because first of all, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't.
Okay. You know, the reason why I'm even asking this is because, like, we've seen a couple of cases where maybe people who are perceived, maybe they didn't even say that they're homosexuals, but they're perceived to be gay, would end up being denied maybe health services, being fired from their
Those
jobs.
are theory, my dear. Because let me say that I have been in this space for a while.
Okay.
I can say for the last 20 years, I have been in this space of these whole arguments. This whole movement, because it amplifies the negative in order to advance itself.
Okay.
How many people are dying in this country for lack of health services? How many?
Quite a number.
Quite a number.
Yeah.
Who is speaking for them? When did you last hear anybody talk about them?
But Bishop.
No, just let's be real. Let's be real about this.
We're being real. We're being real. But then
Because
we can't condone because you're saying the negative is being amplified.
it is
Meaning
being
that-
amplified
Meaning that
because
it is happening for it
no,
to be even
it is
amplified.
Not. It is not. Tell us, give us examples of 2-3 people that you know
Who have been
who are
discriminated
gay and
against.
have been refused medical services.
Well, I work in the health space, and,
Yes.
and part of some of the programs that we actually do is training health workers on how to make services more friendly, either to young people, but also to avoid the discrimination of other people who identify
Are they
differently.
discriminated from where you sit?
Yes, there are quite a number of incidences that have been seen
No.
based on the research that is done within the health spaces.
Because what I can say is that, like I've said,
Yeah.
there's a big movement.
Okay.
I have sat with gay people.
Yeah.
You know, having this kind of conversation. And there was a lady who we were sitting with right next to me,
Yeah.
who claimed, let me say claimed, because I can't tell,
Okay.
claimed to be lesbian. Okay. And as we talked with her, because I got interested to find out how did you become or how did you get to know and so on and so forth. When you get along the way, let me use this particular example, you find that it was actually not a personal something. Let me put it in a negative way. There are quite a number of top Kenyans and Africans who are into this space for money. And that I can tell you without any fear of contradiction. If today, as a pastor, and I know a few pastors who have done this, if today, as a bishop, I were to come out and speak for the gays, I would be the richest man in this country. Because the kind of money that is being pushed through that, the places I will go around this world, speaking as bishop, who is for the gays. I mean, I would. So there are people who have taken advantage of this situation
For the money.
for the money that is there.
Okay.
The real gays are very few, and I've met some of them.
Okay.
I have met some of them. I've talked with some of them. I've prayed with some of them. And I have absolutely no problem with such a person, because these are the few that I've talked to are people who they find themselves in that space with this kind of practice. And they want to know, how can I live an ordinary, normal life? As a pastor, I would be the last person to condemn this person, to castigate this person, because it would be against the faith that we profess.
That's true.
Exactly.
So,
but I am totally against the gay movement.
The gay movement. Okay.
That one I can tell you for a fact.
All right. So assuming that this wasn't part of a movement, would decriminalizing the homosexuality be an option that the church would consider?
It would not even, it doesn't even apply.
Okay.
It would not even apply.
Okay, then it wouldn't apply. But as it
stands, because you see, before this movement is very new, by the way.
Okay.
It's a very new movement. It's not even 20 years old as a movement. Where were the gays before then?
They were there.
Yeah, so why were they not? Why were all these issues not there?
Yeah.
The world is not 20 years old.
Maybe they were tired of living in private
and
hiding themselves. This is what they want, and whatever.
Suzanne, I can tell you for a fact, the gay agenda, get yourself a book called The Gender Agenda. It's a book that was written maybe 25 or so, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And you see it laid out very clearly.
Okay.
Very clearly.
Who is the book?
It is part of, it's a journalist. It's written by a journalist.
Okay.
I don't remember the name right now.
All right. We'll get that and link it in the description.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like I said, all these things are included. They are interlinked.
Okay.
So the children's rights, the gay rights, the abortion rights, and all those things, how comes they're all working together?
Maybe they're considering themselves as minorities.
Which minorities? Why is the LGBT continuing? Now they're almost completing the alphabet.
I see. Okay.
Why?
So the reason why this is not a thing that the church would consider is because of the general agenda that is driving this sort of thing.
You are right.
If it wasn't that way,
if it was an individual or individuals who find themselves in this space, just like any other person who may not be normal or natural like the rest of us, finds themselves in either the disability or a different way of looking at things or doing things or conduct or behavior.
Yeah.
The church, those are the people the church are for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But as a movement, we are totally against.
I see. So you wouldn't say that the church is trying to Christianize the space by making sure that such laws don't pass.
We have not even talked about Christianity. When we are talking about this, it is not. We are not saying let the nation be called Christian.
Okay.
And it is not just the church, by the way.
Yeah.
The Muslims are just as opposed to this.
Yeah.
In fact, more perhaps than we are.
Okay.
Yes. So it is not a church thing.
Okay.
It's a societal thing.
All right.
Because one of the ways to weigh these kinds of things is this push is particularly targeted to the younger people, to the children. Just this past week, I don't know whether you watched it, but there was a video on YouTube, a song that was saying, "We are coming for your children."
Oh.
Did you see it?
No.
By the gay choir of San Francisco.
Oh, interesting.
It was pulled down just 2 days ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And they was saying, "We are coming for your children. We are going to change them. You have spoken against us," but it's so blatant.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it is no longer there on,
Okay.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I watched it.
Okay.
I think there's somebody who cut a clip of it and on Twitter.
Oh, I see.
I could.
You could send
If
it
it
to
is
us.
not yet also pulled down.
Okay. You can send it to us. We have a look at it.
The whole concept of a movement that is trying to change the way society looks at values is what the church is against.
Okay. I think that's pretty clear. That's good. If you have more questions about this, by the way, put them in the description. We can have Bishop back to answer some of your questions.
I'll be happy to.
So
I may
yes.
not give you the answer you want.
But yes, you'll give us an answer for sure. Yeah, so please, do you have a question about this? Do you think the church is Christianizing the space, as we had asked? Do you like Bishop's answer? If not, by the way, you can also tell us. Miss Pindi Kenya myself. But put that in the description, in the comments below.